Hello, good morning, everybody. It's me, Al-Mu'taz Abbadi from the Union for the Mediterranean, and we welcome you again to our meeting. This is the second day. Today we will be focusing on the issues related to water investment and the way forward to build synergy between the UfM water financial strategy and its implementation in the region with the European Green Deal, as well as the investment priority that both on us post COVID-19. But before we start, we would like to start with the recap of yesterday and to highlight the main conclusion and outcome of yesterday meeting in order to start our day with a clear vision of the day. So to do so, I will give the floor for Miss Anne Bruma, our team leader on the technical assistant of the Union for the Mediterranean. Anne Bruma, she's the deputy coordinator of the GWB Mediterranean.
Thank you very much, Almotaz. Good morning, everybody. Very nice to see you all back here. Looking forward to our discussions today. We had a very rich afternoon yesterday, as you know, those that were there participated and witnessed. And it was a rather crowded set of sessions, as you also realized. And we managed to hear actually from 31, yes, you have actually heard correctly, 31 different speakers who shared reflections and information on where we are, and also provided ideas and suggestions on the path ahead of us. Although there was not enough time for discussion, admittedly, the large number of speakers ensured diversity, multiplicity, and a representation of different views and experiences. And this pointed to the greatest asset we have, our synergetic approach and the belief that we work better when we work together, women and men, girls and boys. And this was actually manifested in the fact that we had more than 100 participants coming from 21 different countries and representing more than 30 institutions and regional stakeholder organizations. What can be a better indication of our commitment to work together in partnership and within the framework of the UfM? No? Allow me to maybe share with you my screen. So you can also see some of the key messages that we discussed yesterday, and we can all have a visual of that. So as you remember, or for the newcomers, as you may have seen in the agenda, we had 3 different sessions yesterday, starting with welcoming remarks, where we heard from different partners, strategic and financial partners, and also the co-presidencies of the UfM Secretariat. Ali Subah, Secretary General of the Ministry of Water and Irrigation of Jordan, reminded us that priorities have changed due to the COVID-19, but the main strategies and projects remain. Revisiting them would probably be needed to better respond to this newfound situation. This stands for the national and regional level, including lines of the UfM financial strategy. Daniel Calleja from DG Environment of the Commission shared that the EU Commission is working towards the recovery, which has to be made in a sustainable way. We need to act together and we need to act now, Mr. Calleja reaffirmed. And he also stressed the importance the EC attributes to the UfM, the WEG, and the work that is being done. Enrique Trautmann from DG NEAR of the Commission highlighted the important role of the green recovery in making the Green Deal happen. She also reaffirmed the commitment of the EU to continue within the multilateral framework to support cooperation and pointed to the importance of this meeting, our meeting, as a technological frontrunner for relevant meetings, similar meetings taking place in the future. Peter Lundberg from SIDA stressed that in order to defeat the pandemic, countries have to work together, which leads to mutual understanding and common solutions to common challenges. At the same time, development agencies need to promote regional integration. SIDA is aiming for this through its MENA strategy, the Middle East and North Africa strategy, and announced upcoming support for further technical and policy activities. Mr. Lundberg also complimented the UfM work and the partnership with GWP Med to maintain dialogue on all fronts in the region. while moving into tangible outcomes through pilot interventions, contributing to socioeconomic development in the Mediterranean region while harnessing on the role of women and youth. Monica Weber-Fager from GWP, Stockholm, affirmed that we should become bolder and more decisive on our collective efforts for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Water security is at the core of the SDGs, of COVID preparedness, and of their interlinkages. We are all called upon today to face this with vision and wisdom. Embraced by us all, the UfM water agenda and financial strategy can foster that, offering an agreed regional plan for action. Mrs. Weber-Facher also pointed that UFM-GWP partnership for utilizing international climate financing for climate resilience in the region and committed to each advancement. Secretary General Nasser Kamel highlighted that this crisis provides us with an opportunity to build better. We have to strive together for a sustainable development. We need to deliver tangible results for our citizens and our environment, he noted. He also stressed the critical role of water governance. Although it is improving, it needs to be further attuned to the challenges and needs more financing, especially from the investment side. The second session, as you remember, it provided a bit of a background and reminded us of the water agenda and financial strategy within the overall framework of the UFM Water Policy Framework for Actions. Also, information about the Commission's Green Deal, and also a little bit of run through a literature review on water and COVID-19. Some of the messages that were mentioned include water, COVID-19, and the recovery. And they are that this crisis proves actually the inextricable link of health with access to safe water and hygiene. We also said that COVID-19 has presented all countries with significant adaptation challenges that have been better addressed when working together and cooperatively. Water is, in fact, a cross-cutting issue in the COVID crisis, and the water sector must be an integral part of recovery efforts. Also, reflecting on the exchanges in the chat box, that you all participated in and contributed, and we had the opportunity to reflect already on them within this wrap up. So in the exchanges in the chat box pointed to the need for further and more accurate information on the detection of the virus in water and wastewater. And also it was stressed that it was thanks to the Mediterranean know-how on water reuse that it was possible to have a good grasp on the virus in water, including Istanbul being a front runner as a mega city being assessed in this respect. JRC, together with the UfM and UNEP, WHO, are currently discussing knowledge brokerage and transfer. The post-COVID-19 economic recovery cannot ignore pre-existing and ongoing, and therefore interrelated, challenges such as climate change or environmental degradation. The recovery cannot build on a business as usual model, but rather on a new innovative, sustainable, and sustained growth strategies. The EU remains committed to the Green Deal as the growth strategy and roadmap for recovery, and recognizes that the recovery will require a coordinated approach from all environment-centered policy areas. That was noted by Andrew Murphy from DG Environment in the European Commission. The Green Deal should take into account also the Mediterranean regional experience and vision in terms of water and climate resilience related issues. And there remains a strong regional commitment to the UFM process and specifically to the Water Policy Framework for Action and its financial strategy. The importance of promoting regional cooperation to achieve national water objectives was also pinpointed. And overall, the water sector should be integrated into the wheel of the economic development. We heard yesterday also from Almutaz. The next session and last session of our rich discussion yesterday included dedicated segments to the four thematic priorities of the water agenda. Allow a few reflections on what was presented. There has been significant progress in the work of the different thematic groups, particularly WEM and WIFI, and their interlinkages since the last WEG meeting last June in Brussels. Task force team leaders and members remain active, committed, and eager for the implementation steps. A synergetic WIFI-WEM framework program has been elaborated. Potential partners have been identified and will be further operationally explored. Funding opportunities have been screened, and a strategic partnership with SIDA, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, has been actively pursued. It is anticipated that synergetic actions for Wi-Fi Nexus and WEM focal points will be a framework program, will be launched soon as a proof of concept. From the exchanges in the chat box again, more information was provided on the Wi-Fi related work of UNECE and an encouragement for UNECE to take a more active role as facilitators of SDG 6.5.2 indicator. And further chat box exchanges included a few remarks on the concept, context of the Nexus and its differences, similarities, linkages with IWRM. The WASH thematic group gained particular relevance in the COVID-19 context, as we've seen. A renewed commitment to achieving WASH SDG 6 goal is needed, and the UfM WASH workgroup can be a useful and operative instrument in this context. The theme leaders stressed the need to consider WASH in a comprehensive environment, along with the other themes, including considering the WASH solutions within the overall water agenda. Nonetheless, tangible steps are needed still for WASH in order to reach the level of needed readiness for action. On the water and climate change adaptation, the need to maintain the momentum of climate financing options for pursuing water resilience, especially with GCF, was particularly stressed. In order to put some figures on these opportunities, it was mentioned that the latest replenishment of the Green Climate Fund included $9 billion for the period 2024 funding. Despite the many funding, the funding opportunities that GCF is providing, there seems to be still barriers at the country level to access this support for water-related climate resilience objectives in terms of mobilizing national capacities, collecting the needed range of data, elaborating the required justification of climate benefits, and so on. Recognizing these barriers, the Green Climate Fund aims to address them by making available 1 million per year per country to strengthen the institutional capacity and the governance mechanism to enable the identification of projects and to achieve the implementation afterwards. Concrete follow-up will unfold on the WEG 10 decision following countries' demand at the June 2019 workshop that preceded our last WEG meeting for a UfM GWP partnership to facilitate capacitating water ministries and NDAs within the Ministries of Environment and assisting them addressing international climate financiers for transformative climate resilient water projects. During the discussion, Turkey and Palestine shared their experience with dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Turkey shared the concern from the increase of water use and the projections for a decrease in precipitation levels that could likely cause the decrease of the gross water potential in many river basins in Turkey. Palestine shared that PWA, the Palestinian Water Authority, worked closely with development partners and prepared a strategic plan as a response to the pandemic, including the allocation of more than $8 million to implement the emergency plan. Further funding is requested and needed more. The theme leaders overall in the water agenda emphasize that water should be at the heart of any recovery plan. But the Mediterranean region should change its approach, especially vis-à-vis consumption and production. The water agenda can provide effective content and context in which solutions can develop in the case of the Mediterranean, but also as a contribution beyond our region as well. The Mediterranean region overall, in particular, is particularly vulnerable to existing challenges and is an outstanding example of the need to work collaboratively to overcome challenges that are global but also regional. The member states, through their targeted interventions, emphasized on the importance of our meeting yesterday and today, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic era, to address the challenges in the water sector and to change the experiences in order to flatten the curve. Governments, businesses, and development partners, they need to maintain the focus on meeting the Sustainable Development Goals and not jeopardize the progress made over the last decades. Post-COVID-19 investments should increase and facilitate efforts towards meeting the SDGs. And with that, I would like to conclude a little bit of the wrap up and happy to hear also from all of you during our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy, for this comprehensive recap of the yesterday segment of the meeting. Yes, I would like to emphasize on the fact that the UfM Secretariat and our partner showed a lot of commitment regarding this event, where we have the first time that the two countries that leading each thematic area presents at highest level. And this absolutely another illustration that the UFM policy framework of action is very important and in the center of political agenda and recoveries of our member state. The climate change had witnessed Morocco intervention as well as France, and beside also the Maltese and Egyptian for WASH, Lebanon, Jordan. This absolutely give us a boost toward the future implementation. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor back to Vangalis in order to moderate the session. Thank you, Vangalis.
Thank you, Almotaz. Good morning, everybody. I'm Vangelis Konstantianos, the Executive Secretary for the Global Water Partnership Mediterranean. Before we start the session, a reminder of the very simple rules we have on Zoom. You are all muted by the organizers, so when it comes that you wish to make an intervention at the time of the facilitated discussion, please raise the hand. This is done through the participants box. For the speakers, so important, stick to the time. There is a counter. Please follow that so we stay within limits. Yesterday, Anthi mentioned we had 30 interventions. Even 1 minute more makes 30 minutes. Today, we have 20 plus interventions, including a high-level panel that will have 2 rounds of interventions. The chat box, an important tool. Please share your views there. They will be taken up. Anthi has demonstrated that already in her report of yesterday. Translation, Helena has posted how this works. If you see Japanese, it means Arabic. This is some Zoom specificities. I close with that. I go to the sustainable water financing and investment session in the post-COVID era. The objectives are two: to provide updates on the planned activities on the strategy with an emphasis on national water financing dialogues and the annual conference of UfM on water investments, and to discuss activities and priorities by financial partners. It has 3 parts: an introductory by Almotaz, 2 presentations of national dialogues, and then the interventions by the regional partners. Almotaz, to you for the food for thought.
Thank you very much, Vangalis, for this. Absolutely, we will start our session by trying to see how the UFM financial strategy can fit with the new era post-pandemic, and if it is still relevant or not, and to see together what will work to the Mediterranean aftermath of COVID-19. With this, I just would like to throw some elements for discussion. They are not absolutely something that just thoughts, and we call them food for thoughts in order to be discussed. Next slide, please. So the session objective today is to update on the past activity and discuss the planned activity to support the UfM member state to achieve the objective of the UfM financial strategy on water. Also, to see if this COVID-19 crisis will impact the financial sustainability of the Mediterranean water sector, and how can financial partners and the UfM support UfM member state in this new context after the math of COVID-19 on the overall development in the Mediterranean. Next slide, please. So just a tips for reminder, as you know that the financial strategy had been developed after the endorsement of the UfM senior official of the water agenda and its financial strategy in 2017, December 2017, 6 months after the ministerial declaration of Valletta on water. The main objective that been mandated to us is to enhance the financial sustainability of the Mediterranean water sector so that national and international can achieve objective mutually in terms of working together, as well as to consolidate national plan that will introduce contemporary and responsive framework of action when it comes to the way that we govern our water sector at national and regional level. So the financial strategy had introduced 10 objectives and suggested 48 actions. These 48 actions can be applicable for any member state country, any international organization, or some of them can be applicable. Some other already there. Some of them need to be done in order to enhance the financial sustainability. The UfM financial strategy, it is a framework for individual UfM member states to develop their own financial strategies, to provide a basic information and basic toolkits for dialogue with financial partners, including the private sector. It's also a responsibility of the UfM member state in order to implement the financial strategy. The UfM Secretariat and other international and regional organization role is to facilitate as well as to provide the needed guidance and technical support, and as mentioned by Andy, try to bring capacities and exchange of knowledge and good practices among the member states. But at the end of the day, as I said, the ownership and the process owned by the member state and the responsible ministries to manage the water sector. Next slide, please. What are some of the impact of COVID-19 crisis on the financial sustainability of the Mediterranean water sector? So as known for everybody that the COVID-19 crisis was very, very harsh on the Mediterranean country. As you know, that many of our member states had faced a lot of negative impacts when it comes to the health sector, as well as when it comes to the economic sector. Because as we can see that I'm not a predictor, but as we are reading that this crisis, it's very huge negative impact on the health, but absolutely we need to be careful because of its aftermath. Economic crisis need to be tackled carefully. When it comes to the water sector, we at the Union for the Mediterranean and based on the experts, we see that this crisis likely increase in demand for wash services. And yesterday we had noticed that many of our member states reported, including the Jordanian, our presidency, that the domestic water supply had been under pressure as demand on water sector and demand on the water usage at the domestic level had been record high due to the fact that water and washing hand and was the first to fight the pandemic. The other point, the impact likely increase in cost of providing these services also when it comes to the protection of utility, protection of water supply, as well as the issue related to protection of avoiding infiltration of the virus into the treated effluent, which is also another resources that used to achieve the production chain when it comes to the agricultural and irrigation activity. Impact of the economic crisis also likely decrease in the household ability to pay for wash services, which is absolutely obvious in many countries, including the US and in our region, that may individual will not be able to pay the water bills. And this is will be kind of a snowball that might affect the sustainability of the service provider. So government need to be aware about all of this inter intervention, likely also decrease of public budget to subsidize operation and maintenance. This is another worry that we need to avoid, that government should be able to know that water sector should be at the priority of the investment and should be supported in order to avoid any uh, collapse. Also, possible reduction of public budget for development cooperation in partner country. This is another thing that the UfM Secretariat would like to highlight, that we need to keep the vine, vines of cooperation to support countries and to bolster regional cooperation over this sector and to enhance investment, because without investing in the water sector, we cannot see any good activity for other sectors. Next slide, please. So when it comes to uh, some of the opportunity that we need to discuss, so increased realization by decision maker, domestic and international, of the importance of water surface for health outcome and economic growth. This was very obvious that all policy and decision maker had recognized, especially those who were not recognizing that the water sector should be at the center of development. So reduction in cost from technological and organizational innovation promoted by COVID-19 crisis. If water sector willing to experiment, learn, and change, absolutely uh, shift toward the new innovative and technological way to manage and control systems are also obvious now. We want to see if this is another thing that we can focus at the end of the day. Access to investment budget associated to national recovery packages. If water sector credible and ready to lobby, so we want to see how the water community around the Mediterranean will be able to promote uh, for investors to join and to come uh, into investing on this sector or investing on related to the sector, as mentioned yesterday, on the Wi-Fi investment as well as water and employment and entrepreneurial. Access to response packages put together by IFI. If water sector shovel ready and willing to reform. So this is another thing that we it's not only about COVID. This is our objective since launching the first UFM Water Investment Program, and also we are continuing this over on the next program in order to see how we enhance and increase the water sector investment and opportunity to attract different resources, including the private sector money as well as different green climate fund. Next slide, please.
Almotaz, I think this is the last one and we have already exceeded time.
Yes, okay, but the only this is the last slide. So from our side, we see that the UFM Secretariat also could help on providing some technical assistance and technical services to support leading water institution to integrate water in national recovery packages. And this is something that maybe in the discussion we would like to highlight what are expected from us as an international regional organization, as well as from our partner financial institute. With this, I would like to thank you and give you the floor back, Mr. Vangelis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Almotaz. It was very informative and tailored to that. Let's go directly into the national dialogues on water financing and the lessons we have learned. Let me turn first to Albania, to Arduan Karagiosi, Director for Water Resources Management Agency. Arduan, to you.
Hello. It's okay? Can you hear
We
me?
hear you. Yes, we hear you.
Hello to everyone. It's nice to see you again. I hope everything has gone good during this time. Unfortunately, I didn't have possible to join you yesterday, but today I will be with you. So back to the what we are discussing. For sure, Albania has been a difficult, let's say, time, difficult period. But we never stop working. I can say that somehow we have been familiarized with this new kind of, let's say, work. Sometimes from home and sometimes, let's say, from the office. But since 1st of June, here in Water Resources Management Agency, we have started, let's say, being permanently in the office. And during this time, many activities also important for water management has taken place. I can mention here, let's say, the signing of the SAP of the Dream Basin that has been, let's say, an online meeting with all the high-level representatives of the countries. So it can be considered a success even during the COVID-19 period. Also, we have, let's say, managed many different, let's say, activities and projects during this time. Also, we are ongoing within the national, let's say, framework to work with thematic group and other, let's say, strategic issues. So somehow we have been familiar and the work have not stopped. This is what I can say, and we have to be optimistic for the future. And thank you very much for organizing this workshop on these days. We are very interested to participate and to collaborate and to be part. So thank you very much. This is from our side.
Leonardo, and thank you so much for this. Let me turn to Jordan and Mohammed Al-Douari, the Secretary General Assistant for Strategic Planning at the Ministry of Water and Irrigation. Mohammed, to you. I understand that Mohammed is not with us, so Roberto is going to make this intervention. Roberto Martin Hurtado from UfM Advisor on Water Economics.
Hello, good morning.
Yes,
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today, as well as yesterday. I will be making a presentation you've seen on the program on the development of the program of national workshops on water financing. I just wanted to say, maybe it's easier if I just share my screen. Right. So as Almotas has mentioned, in 2019, the UfM developed the financial strategy for water. And throughout 2019, the UfM supported the development of two national workshops on water financing. In March 2019, there was the one in Jordan, and in October was the one in Albania. And of course, we have Ardon here who can, answer any questions that you have, about the Albanian experience. And now in 2020, with the COVID-19 crisis, the program of national workshops have been put on hold for the time being. And so this provides an opportunity to reflect on its future development. Just to give you a sense, in the documentation for this meeting, you have received a document on the program of national workshops for water financing. And that includes the thoughts I'm going to present now in terms of how to move forward with that program. But it also gives you the workshop reports from the Jordan and the Albanian experiences. So just to give you a flavor of what you'll have there. For Jordan, what happened, Jordan was the first experience. And so we started the process with a 3-day preparatory mission. That included one meeting hosted by the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation with several government agencies. In Albania, we did all the meetings bilaterally. So we have been experimenting with slightly different approaches. In Jordan, there was a 1-day meeting. That's also that was the case in Albania. In Jordan, meeting took place in a hotel, while in Albania it took place in the midst of foreign affairs. In Jordan, we had a context-setting session, a session on self-assessment and setting and identifying priorities, and conclusions and recommendations. It was fairly similar in Albania, but also with some slight differences that you can see if you're interested when you look at the agendas of the two workshops in the documentation provided. I'm not going to go into the conclusions of the Albania experience because we've got here the Albanian representatives, but just to give you a flavor of the conclusions from the Jordan experience of the Jordan workshop. Well, in Jordan there was a consensus, I think, already before the workshop on from different government agencies and development partners and other stakeholders on the need to enhance the financial sustainability of the water sector. I think it's a country where discussions about financial sustainability are fairly advanced. When they did the self-assessment, they found that they were well advanced in about 40% of the areas identified in the financial strategy for water, but they needed to accelerate progress in. And it was interesting that they identified areas where they could provide assistance, knowledge, experience to other UfM countries. I think a third conclusion is that the development partners really appreciate the past and ongoing efforts of the Jordanian water sector in trying to enhance its financial sustainability. The workshop reaffirmed the priorities in terms of financial sustainability of Jordan, which include reducing non-revenue water, reducing energy costs, and increasing revenues from water charges. I think another conclusion was the financial strategy. The financial sustainability requires a whole of government approach. It's not enough with the water sector. In the case of Jordan, it's very important that the energy ministry is also, on board in discussions with the water sector. And another conclusion was the national workshop is a useful model for advancing policy dialogue in a country and to identify needs and needs for assistance. The Jordan experience included as well a high-level dinner at the end of the day to present the results to high-level officials, and it included as well a presentation at the government donor water sector group that took place the following day. So we did strategically decided to have the workshop back to back with this government donor water sector group meeting. So I'm going to stop there for Jordan. As I said, for Albania, we have our colleagues online, and so in terms of the lessons learned from the two initial experiences, I think one is there is a need to adopt a flexible approach to the planning and organization of national workshops on water financing. This means that we have to take, different options with different countries, not the cookie cutter approach. The second lesson that we have drawn is that we need to increase the efforts to maximize the impact of the workshop process and conclusions in the ongoing national discussions on water financing. The third one is that I think there is a need to strengthen the regional dimension of the program on national workshops on water financing. And there is also a need to further fine-tune the objectives of the individual national workshops on water financing. So based on these reflections and these lessons learned, we are proposing a slightly reformed program of national workshops for water financing. And this is all, again, it's all described in the documentation for the workshop. Incidentally, we encourage you to provide us comments on the documents by 25th of June, so we can, finalize, the documents by the end of the month. So the general aim of the program remains the same: support to UfM member states to enhance the financial sustainability of the water sector. But we have tried to identify a more specific objectives for each national workshop. And this is a menu of options, and there will be discussions with individual countries on what exact objectives they want to pursue. from just informing national actors about the financial strategy and their own roles in implementing it, to launching a national dialogue on water financing or strengthen an ongoing dialogue on water financing, to try to influence specific national planning processes, to carry out the self-assessment and identify a set of priority actions, to develop the capacities of the living agency on water financing, to engage relevant actors, or to increase the political visibility. So it could be, typically for any national workshop, you will have 3 or 4 of these objectives as the main objectives for the workshop. In terms of the planning process, I think we need to be strategic on, what's the right time to develop a national workshop on water financing based on those objectives. And we are hoping to have this idea of revitalizing the water financing task force that developed the financial strategy for water. And we could have, quarterly online meetings of the water financing task force, and that could be an opportunity as well to monitor opportunities to organize national workshops in different countries at the right time. Again, we, in terms of identifying the specific objectives, the idea is to draft the country-specific concept note with the objectives, options to achieve them, and the timeline. And in terms of preparatory planning work, in a normal world, we would have a preparatory mission. In a travel-restricted world, we may have to rely more on online meetings. In terms of the preparatory analytical work, in this first phase, in the first 2 experiences, it was fairly light. This is what we have as option A. This is a short analytical note to inform the design of the workshop, which again, in a normal world, would be the output of the preparatory mission, and in a travel-restricted world, would require to engage a local consultant. Now, if there is an option B, that is to carry out the self-assessment and the prioritization exercise in advance of the national workshop. In some cases, it may make sense to do that in advance of the workshop, so you have a shorter workshop focused on validating the results and focusing on the communicating the results. Now, this would require the UfM Secretariat to develop a methodology and a tool for the self-assessment and prioritization exercise. And an option C that it maybe is fairly ambitious at this stage, but may come useful as the program matures, is to develop a peer review report that would require following the models that developed by other international organizations like the OECD, UNECE, and others. So it could be it would require the interested country to request it and to supply the data, and it would require peer countries to volunteer expert officials to join a review mission, and it would also require the UfM Secretariat to develop a methodology to support this. As I said, there are models, and it's possible, but it's fairly ambitious at the moment. Now, again, in terms of the lessons learned.
Roberto, let me ask you to speed up a bit.
I do have, I think, 20 minutes in total for the 3 presentations, since I'm getting, the 5 from Jordan.
Okay, so you will integrate the regional one. Okay, please go ahead.
I think I'll just go, So, as I said, in terms of the length of the workshop, if the self-assessment and prioritization is done at the workshop, that's required 1.5 to 2 days. If it's done before, maybe half a day to 1 day would be enough. Again, there's more discussion of this in the documentation for this meeting. Now, the date should need to be fixed at least 6 weeks in advance, so to ensure that everyone, relevant can note it in their calendars. The place could be a commercial venue or an official venue. We think that there are advantages to an official venue, but it will depend on a case-by-case basis. The format will be, a mix and match of a content setting session, a stakeholders view session, different topical sessions, working groups maybe, and we think a high-level segment is probably well advised. The number of participants, again, depending on the objectives and format of the workshop, it may be a smaller group of 20 to 25 or a larger group of 50 to 60. In terms of outputs, we have been, producing, press releases and workshop reports. But I think, moving forward, we may want to have, policy briefs coming out of the workshops. And again, in that more ambitious product could be a peer review report. Now, this is my last slide for this first presentation on in the regional peer learning and the roles. We think we have experimented in the Albanian workshop. We didn't have any of this in the Jordan workshop. In the Albanian workshop, we experimented both with having Jordan participating by video conferencing and Morocco, taking part in the workshop itself. And we think that this could be, expanded, taking the advantage of a peer visiting the country to have an internal seminar. And if we have, more advanced, more ambitious, plans in a review mission, peers could be part of the review mission. And I mentioned the quarterly online meetings of the Water Financing Task Force as an option for peer learning. And once we have a critical mass of experiences, we could, produce a regional analysis, a regional report. In terms of a clarification of roles between the UfM water team and the leading authority in the country, the leading authority is there to provide leadership, facilitate the technical work, and provide substantive inputs and approve the products. And the UfM water team, in terms of quantity-level activities, is supporting the identification of objectives and supervising analytical work and developing products. And at the regional level, the water financing, organizing the water financing task force and developing the regional analysis. So that's my first 1.5 presentation covering Jordan and the program of national workshops on water financing. Shall I continue, Vangelis, with my next presentation?
Yes, please go ahead. Keep the time in mind.
How much time do I have left?
4 minutes.
Okay, so this is one of the activities to support the implementation of UfM Financial Strategy for Water, and is to raise the profile of, the objectives are to raise the profile of water investing and financing issues, to push the boundaries of traditional thinking, and to promote water investments and policy reforms to enhance the financial sustainability of the water sector. The first conference took place as it was mentioned yesterday, on 5th of December in Rome, in the framework of the Mediterranean Dialogues. About 40 participants, and some outputs of this are the identification of regional priorities for enhancing financial sustainability. We had the first discussion on engaging private financiers, and we discussed the special topic of public-private partnerships. A conference report is available, has been distributed to you. There are a number of key messages there regarding private finance, public-private partnerships, and the messages coming from the high-level meeting. For lack of time, I won't go into those. You have all of them in the documentation for this workshop. And so we are planning, already thinking about the second conference. The date and place are still to be decided. We are hoping that it will take place in end of October or early November, and it would take place over 2 days rather than 1 day. This is because several people at the workshop told us that they would really have liked more time to discuss. The specific objectives of this second conference will be to promote peer learning on approaches to deal with the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis on the financial sustainability of the sector, to establish a regular platform to engage all type of financiers, and to share good experiences and lessons learned in working towards selected topics that have been identified as priorities of the financial strategy for water. This comes from looking at the guidance provided at the first conference on how to design the second one. Now, the participation will be again by invitation only, a slightly larger audience with more presence of the finance community. We look for a balanced set of speakers, the outputs. We'll have again a conference report. We are hoping to go a bit further than that, have a leaflet or a briefing coming out of it, and maybe even have some video reports. Or while this is led by the UfM Secretariat, the UfM Secretariat pretty much looks forward to additional partners to join. So in addition to GWP Med and SIDA, we really are hoping that others will come forward. The structure of the conference, again, this is up for your comments. You have your opportunity to put that comments now or in written form over the next 2 weeks. We have an opening session where we have what we call the regional peer learning forum, focusing on the COVID-19 impacts. Then that will be the first morning. The first afternoon, focus on the UfM roundtable on finance and water. And then the second day, focus on specific topics. What we have selected for the time being are approach in the pillar on approaching water financing in a strategic way, how to reform the sector to enhance its financial sustainability. Regarding the second pillar on making the best use of existing financial resources, focus on the topic on increasing water efficiency and improving asset management. And in terms of the third pillar is attracting additional financial resources. We are considering either the topic of mobilizing climate finance for water or the topic of increasing internally generated revenues. So again, very much looking to your input on designing the conference. We're also hoping to have a high-level session on the Mediterranean water sector in a post-COVID-19 world, and then our closing session. So that's, stop sharing. I think that's all from me for the time being, Vangelis.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Now, what has been presented in these three presentations makes a combo. With the introduction of Almotaz that presented the bigger picture of the financial strategy, the two national dialogues and the regional event. This makes steps in the implementation of the financial strategy of the UfM. This will be followed up both at the national level, and UfM is in contact with countries in arranging that, as well, hopefully, with the regional event if conditions of COVID allow. Unless we go again online, this would be more complicated maybe. Now, with all this, let me turn into the targeted interventions from the financial and strategic partners. Please be prepared. This is a long list of colleagues who are going to intervene. Let's start immediately with Andrea Osterman, Senior Sector Economist from the European Investment Bank, for a 4-minute intervention. Thank you. Andrea, to you.
Thanks, Vangelis. Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Good, good. I have to start with an apology for a technical problem. For some reason, I can't start my video here. Why? So you will have to do with my voice. So, all right.
Please go ahead. Unless we control the video, let me ask the technicians if it is on our side. But please go ahead.
Sure. You asked me to make interventions about 3 questions. I will take them one by one. The first question is, what do you see as the 3 key challenges that the COVID-19 crisis poses for the financial sustainability of the water sector in the Mediterranean? To me, there are 3 key challenges. The most urgent one, the most acute one, is what I call the working capital challenge. The second one and the third one are more medium-term challenges. I call them the capital investment challenge and the tariff challenge. Let me start with the first one. I think that this is a challenge that Almotaz already hinted at. All over the world, we get news from water utilities where customers massively stop paying bills. That doesn't happen everywhere, but it happens in quite a few places, including some, but not all of the UfM member states. So here we have the situation in which water utilities are in a squeeze. They, more important than ever, to provide water to help combat the COVID-19 crisis. At the same time, the revenues from the bills is going down, and it causes lots of problems in selected countries. Water utilities facing difficulties to paying bills for new chemicals, for power, for salaries. So that's the first and most immediate challenge that I can see. The second one is the capital investment challenge. And in some, not all, in some UfM member states, capital investments in the water sector are financed by grants from the central government. Because of the COVID crisis, many governments are facing financial difficulties. And as a result, we expect that in the medium term, capital investments in the sector will be postponed or will be reduced in selected countries. The third challenge related to financial sustainability has something to do with tariffs. Many of our borrowers have agreed tariff roadmaps to either achieve full O&M cost recovery or, depending on the member state, to achieve full cost recovery over time. And because of the crisis, because of political considerations, because of reduced affordability levels of low-income households, we think that it will be more difficult to stick to these financial tariff roadmaps than before. So these are the three challenges. Now, the second question that you asked us to intervene about is how could your organization, in my case, the European Investment Bank, help UfM member states to address some of those challenges? A couple of weeks ago, the leadership of our bank, the European Investment Bank, approved lots of measures in response to combating the COVID-19 crisis. We have made more things eligible than before. For existing borrowers, it is now possible to apply for loans for financing operations and maintenance costs, something that we did not do before. We also relaxed temporarily our financing rule. Normally, EIB finances up to 50% of the project cost. This is now being increased to 90% for all projects, COVID-related or not. And for COVID-related expenditures, we can fund now up to 100% instead of 50% before. We've also made it easier to disburse funds. We made it easier to complete projects on time by extending the deadline of the projects. Moving on to the third question, how could the UfM work to address some of those challenges? I just briefly summarized some of the measures that the EIB has taken place, has put into place, temporary measures during the COVID crisis. I know for a fact that other IFIs and other bilateral donors also have specific COVID-related measures, have developed such measures, and perhaps it would be useful if UfM compiles all these newly introduced measures that have only come into force the last couple of months, or in some cases the last couple of weeks, and distribute them to member states. All right, time is up. That was it from my side. I hope that this was all clear, and if you have any questions, send me a chat in the chat box.
Thank you very much. That was clear and very rich, including suggestions. I think very good tips also for follow-ups by the UfM. Let me turn immediately to Spain, to Immaculada Mañana, Senior Advisor for the Middle East from IHI, the Spanish Cooperation Agency. Immaculada? Please go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Evangelis. Well, from my point of view, I think working in a public agency for international cooperation for development, I think our main challenge, it's probably that we are going to have less resources. You know, we have, COVID has led us, to all of us, to a very strong economic crisis, and governments need to make adjust budget constraints. And in that situation, we can expect that resources cooperation are going to be reduced. And another additional challenge or link to this is that probably health sector is going to need a lot of extra resources. And so there is going to be the temptation to concentrate all these extra resources in the health sector. But on the other hand, we have seen that international cooperation is fundamental for dealing with global crisis. And in global crisis, the provision of global public goods is critical. And I think water will be in this category. So if you ask me what my organization can do, I say that we still consider water as a critical issue, as a key sector. We have not to forget that water is the most restrictive factor for sustainable development in the Mediterranean region. And so in this sense, we have recently, some months ago, launched a water program for the Mediterranean area, which is called Nasar Water. And the overall goal is to contribute to sustainable water management in the North Africa and Near East, covering Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, Palestine, and Tunisia. This program has three specific objectives: promote sustainable management and governance, improve water and sanitation service, and promote efficient use of water resources in agriculture. This program works both on bilateral and regional activities, and will mainly involve technical cooperation and support for water administration. Of course, in bilateral activities, priorities are determined by competent authorities in each country, with a link to the lines of action of the program, and with include technical assistance, pilot projects, institutional capacity, but also feasibility studies and infrastructure design. I think we have been talking about how the needs for infrastructure funding are going to be increasing in this situation. And so this program will also seek to promote and facilitate investment in infrastructure and service for water access and distribution, sanitation, and irrigation. And funding for this infrastructure will require additional resources that could come, for example, from PRODE, which is a financial fund that is also working in another regions, financing water infrastructures. And also, besides carrying out specific programs, the aim is to provide the program with a region-wide dimension that given that this country face similar challenge. To design different training activities, regional workshops, debates, and exchange of experience will be organized. Create complementary meeting points to the project and supporting their implementation. And here, I think the Union for Mediterranean has a very active role, because we need to look for synergies between all the programs and all the financial facilities in order to stimulate inversions and to really be more effective with them. And I think I have reached just the last of my time.
Thank you so much, Inmaculada, for presenting us the Spanish efforts through Masar, for MENA. Let me recognize here that we have already exceeded 80 participants, and after the short interventions we have ahead, there is a time for facilitated discussion. So if you wish to intervene, please raise your hand in the participant box, and this will be managed by the organizers. Now, let me turn to Ayman Ayad, the Water and Utility Sector Manager from the delegation of the European Union in Egypt. Ayman, over to you again with the three main questions: the key challenges, the contributions of your institution, and how UfM could help further.
So, thank you all for this opportunity. I think for the first question related to the key challenges, I will not add more to what Andre have said, because he perfectly summed it. Maybe an additional to emphasis that many of the countries, especially in Egypt, I talk mainly in Egypt, the current pandemic will affect, of course, the government plans to conduct their tariff restructure, plus which will also impact the cost recovery and their abilities to extract more finance, either from the local budget or from foreign finance. Also, this will also add more reluctance from the private sector to engage in water-related project, which is a new trend, and I think different governments are relying more and more for the private sector to intervene and to, let's say, support in let's say, traditional financing mechanism and PPP schemes. This would be challenging, and this would actually come us to the second point related what we were doing in this regard in the UAE delegation. In Egypt, we're working on 3 pillars. So the first pillar is the strategy. So we are working with the government under the Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Housing, the technical ministries, and also the Ministry of Finance and Planning to update our strategy for the water sector and try to find what will be the gaps given the current situation, what will be the mitigation measures, also to diversify financing options and packages. Given the current situation, more flexibility from different sides, especially from the development partners, would be needed, because relying on a certain percentage from coverage from the local contribution might not be easy. We might need to flexibilize our conditions for cost recovery or for assessing the, let's say, the financial viability of projects and look onto the bigger picture on the economic viability and social impacts. Also, we are working to support certain policy dialogues between the private sector, government officials, banks, and IFIs, how we could contribute to find or to mitigate the pandemic crisis and situation, and how we could find non-traditional financing options through maybe BFIs or intervened bankings, or also tapping into resources like the Green Climate Fund or the European Fund for Sustainable Development, and try to design projects with a hybrid structure which combines either guarantees plus investment grants and possibly also building capacities and targeting what are the main challenges identified by the private sector. What could the UfM help doing to address some of these challenges? I think, given the nature of the UfM and taking the financial strategy as a base, I guess try to conduct or to help cross-fertilization and information sharing, exchange sharing between Mediterranean countries, especially of similar situation, maybe also to encourage countries of similar situation other than Southern Mediterranean or Mediterranean to apply together to some of the regional funds, specifically like the Green Climate Fund or the European Fund for Sustainable Development, to make better use of these funds and to have a better chance of securing these funds. And by this, I think my time is over. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayman. Much appreciated, and comes from a country, so the actual situation on the ground. Let me turn to UNDP, to Kisan Kodai, Regional Team Leader for Nature, Climate, and Energy at the Regional Hub for Arab States. Are you with us?
Hi, good
Hello.
morning.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, organizers, Al-Mutaz, and everyone. Pleasure to be here. So I'll just give a brief overview of what UNDP is doing to help build a social and economic resilience of communities in the Arab region, where we work through our local presence in all countries of the Arab region. Today, UNDP supports over $500 million of grants in the Arab region, community national initiatives on things like climate change, sustainable energy, and environment, including, of course, the important topic of water within that. So out of this 500 million of grants, approximately 100 million of that is related to the water topics under discussion. And this is towards building the resilience of communities and addressing and economic vulnerabilities from multiple crises, of course, in the Arab region. So a few elements of that I'll just bring out here in terms of what we're doing in the region. The first one is the important topic of the nexus between water and climate change that is being discussed since yesterday, and a couple of points on the climate nexus. Firstly, the topic of the role of UNDP in implementing Green Climate Fund support. Globally, we have about $842 million of grants that we implement from the Green Climate Fund, specifically a major focus on climate adaptation, and within that, a big focus on links to water. So climate resilient livelihoods, climate resilient agriculture, the links to food and water security is a big focus in that portfolio. That includes, of course, a few initiatives in the Arab region. Approximately $55 million of those GCF grants out of the overall is specifically in the Arab region, and a few countries, including in places like Egypt and Sudan and Tunisia, where we have projects ongoing or under development to address various angles of climate adaptation as it relates to water security in the region. So definitely an important role for linking to climate adaptation and financing, such as Green Climate Fund, as was discussed yesterday. The second point under the climate nexus is the link to the national climate plans, or NDCs, under the Paris Agreement. On the road to COP26 next year, there's a big focus on raising ambition and enhancing, updating the NDCs. We're supporting 100 countries globally in that process under what we call the Climate Promise, as part of the overall UN effort. And within the Arab region, 7 countries that we're supporting in that process. So that's focusing on the actual content, ways to enhance the actual NDCs. Obviously, links to water and other sectors within that process is a big focus already in the pre-existing NDCs, but also to look at that more in depth during the process. But those platforms also are important for looking at ways to scale up climate finance to implement the NDCs over the next several years, especially in this context of economic crisis, as been discussed since yesterday. The third subpoint then under the nexus with climate is specifically on the links of solar. And we have a number of initiatives in the region to expand decentralized solar solutions for enhancing access to water. So things like irrigation, as well as other energy needs for water access. And that's in places like Libya and Morocco, and further afield in the Arab region, in places like Sudan, Yemen, etc., as well, Lebanon, Iraq. So that's very quickly on the nexus to climate and just some of the kind of things that we're focusing on. Number 2, we have an important initiative on transboundary water, given that it's such a big issue in the Arab region for much of the water governance issues, through a $4 million program supported by the Global Environment Facility, the GF. We have a new initiative just being launched on co-management among countries for the Nubian aquifer, which is an aquifer under Egypt, Libya, Sudan, and Chad, the world's largest fossil aquifer, and of course a growing reliance of rural communities and farmers and other uses on groundwater in particular. I think is an important issue in globally, of course, and in the Arab region, and ways to manage these transboundary issues. This is one of the first big UN initiatives on transboundary co-management of groundwater, and various aspects of that challenge of co-management.
Kishan, let me ask you if you are able to conclude, please.
Yes. So final point on the important aspect of community resilience and access to water for crisis-affected communities in the region, supporting community-level water infrastructure, about $55 million of grants ongoing in the Arab region to help communities affected by a crisis, including displaced communities, refugees and IDPs, places like Iraq, Jordan, Palestine, and further afield in the Arab region, Yemen and Sudan and elsewhere. And I'll conclude with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is very encouraging that UNDP joins this consultation, and hopefully this link will continue in the next meetings of the WEG or other type of such consultations. So thank you very much. So let me turn immediately to the World Bank, represented by Frederick Dupont de Dineshin, Senior Knowledge Management Officer in the bank at CMI. Frederick, to you.
Thank you, Vangelis. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
Okay, you can hear me and see me. Okay, great. Thank you, Vangelis, and thank you, Almotaz. Well, last December, I participated in Roma in the first conference on water investment and financing in the Mediterranean region, organized by the UfM. And I'm really glad to see that today we are again, despite the extremely difficult circumstances, virtually gathering for this consultation. And I would like to thank the UfM, its Secretary General Nasser Kamel, Isidro, Almotaz, and all the UfM water team and the partners. And I'm sorry we can get face to face together, but I'm really looking forward to that. First, let me say that the World Bank is committed to supporting the water agenda in the Med region as a contribution to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular goal number 6, to ensure water and sanitation for all. And as a result, water is at top of the World Bank investment strategy in the region. In 2015, 20% of its committed lending portfolio was in the MENA region was on water, which represented more than 2.5 billion US dollars. And also as such, the World Bank is supporting the UfM financial strategy for water, including the key challenges laid out in that strategy and the 10 strategic objectives presented yesterday and today. Related to COVID and water, although the COVID-19 crisis undoubtedly brings extraordinary challenges to the achievement of the SDGs, it also brings opportunities and for solidarity, and the policy response must be about rebuilding better towards sustainable development and increased resilience. This includes public and private investment in sustainable development, such as building resilient infrastructure. When I made my presentation in December, I presented the World Bank strategy with regards to public-private partnership, and it is even more relevant now, including performance-based services and performance indicators. It also includes strengthening social protection systems and additional investments in crisis prevention, risk reduction, resilience, and planning. To the question, what are the key main issues? There are many, but I would like to insist on 3. First, the potential restructuring of investment portfolio to free up additional funding to support social measures and mitigate economic and social impact of the COVID-19 crisis. This could lead to partial cancellation of or restructuring of funding going towards water projects. That is why we should strive to push water on top of the political agenda of the Med countries and link it to the broader development agenda, including food security, employment, health, and energy. And I think that in that context, the UfM supported Nexus strategy is really key, and we fully support it. Second challenge, the decrease in revenue for water utilities and wastewater treatment plants due to the impact of the COVID-19, which in turn will negatively impact the financial sustainability of these institutions in the long term, is also a key challenge we have to address. Indeed, utility revenue has decreased due to the fact that utilities provided services with limited or even without payment during the pandemic. And as a result, revenue loss is accumulating, and utilities need pertinent strategies and financial support to offset these losses. Third, the COVID-19 crisis had shed light on the importance of WASH, water sanitation and hygiene operations. It is therefore likely that in the future, water financing will focus more on WASH, which is indeed necessary. But at the same time, there needs to be a balance on different water fronts, and diversity in terms of supported projects is required. And maybe it is also an opportunity for a renewed focus on efficiency. This was mentioned by the previous speakers, and I think what we have, like what we are doing in terms of energy efficiency, I think that water efficiency is the key element of the resilience agenda towards pandemics such as COVID-19, but also towards climate change, like was presented by the previous speaker. The World Bank is really highly involved in the post-COVID-19 crisis. Over the next 15 months, the World Bank will be providing up to 160 billion in financing tailored to the health, economic, and social shocks countries are facing. And also, with the encouragement of the World Bank and the IMF and others, G20 economies are allowing the world's poorest countries to suspend a repayment of official bilateral credits as of May the 1st, 2020. This initiative will do much to safeguard the lives and livelihoods of millions of the most vulnerable people. This is for the broad picture. Regarding water, World Bank, and the Med region, I like to conclude my presentation with two key pieces that the World Bank is preparing, two key analytical reports, one on the economics of water scarcity in the region, and the second on water migration and development with a focus on the region. These pieces are key because it's not only about money, it's about knowledge, and these reports will allow to better inform the water strategy in our post-COVID-19 world. With that, it's over to you, Vangelis, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Frederick, for your concrete pointers, and we do look forward for collaboration, especially in areas where UfM has established agendas like the two studies that you mentioned just now. It would be good to find the synergies. Let me turn to OECD at the Environment Department, Javier Lefebvre, Team Leader for Resilient Adaptation to Climate Change and Water. Javier.
Thank you, Vangelis, and thank you, Anutaz and colleagues for the invitation. It's great to see familiar faces, although essentially virtually. I don't want to repeat the points made by my colleagues, but I would like to emphasize a few things. First, when it comes to how COVID-19 affects water in the region, I would like to emphasize 3 points. One is a renewed impetus to secure access to safe water, because we now understand that hygiene is the first defense against pandemics. Second point is a renewed impetus to monitor wastewater streams. We had that conversation yesterday, and we now understand that wastewater streams can be a very variable warning system to anticipate the diffusion or the spreading of a pandemic. So that makes a stronger case for monitoring and supervising wastewater streams. And the third point is a point made already by Daniel Calera yesterday, is that COVID-19 comes on top of other crises, and the other crises shouldn't be, shouldn't fall off the radar. And typically, adapting water management to climate change remains an utmost priority. Now, when it comes to financing, I think the main points were said by my colleagues from EIB and the World Bank. We understand the crisis affects the revenues of utilities. I would like to emphasize here the specific situation of cities or places which are affected by tourism, and the lack of tourism. In my home city in Paris, the Eau de Paris already anticipate that the revenue for the year will decrease by at least 5%. You may think 5% is not much, but for utilities which are already on the verge of a financial balance, 5% can actually be seriously affecting the financial sustainability. Now, as others said, the economic crisis will affect financing capacities of governments, national and local. and the crisis will generate more acute affordability issues, which again will affect the financial sustainability of service providers. The point, to me, the message here is that this calls for a renewed emphasis on robust financing strategies at national and local level. And here, a preliminary message I would like to emphasize, which was already in the UfM financial strategy a few years ago, is that it's not all about more money. Our understanding at the OECD is that robust financing strategies combine three dimensions which are mutually reinforcing. The first one is efficiency of the operation of existing assets. We have to make sure existing assets are well managed. The second dimension is effectiveness of expenditure programs, making sure that available funding is well spent. There is already quite a lot of money going into the water sector. Are we sure that money is going to the right projects and deliver on the ground? The third dimension is about harnessing new sources of finance. As Ambassador Nasser Kamel reiterated yesterday, there are opportunities to harness domestic commercial finance in particular, because that money is available in the region. The good news is that money is available, and it was a point made by Enrique Trautmann yesterday, and I think it's a very important one. The challenge is how to channel financial flows so that governments and partners deliver on the water agenda. Another good news is that I think there is strong agreement that there are benefits of a regional approach. It was a point emphasized by the European Commission, by colleagues from Swedish SIDA and others, and here UfM is uniquely placed. And so it's great to have UfM as a platform to promote and support this regional approach. One suggestion I would like to make as the OECD in building on our work on financing water is, as a collective endeavor at a regional level, I think we would all gain from making robust projections on water-related financing needs and financing capacities in the region. I think that such an effort would provide robust data, but also opportunities to engage with countries and partners in a structured way. We just delivered a similar project with the European Commission, typically DG Environment, covering 27 EU member states. And we are also working in Asia, covering 48 countries with ADB. And in these projects, we see the benefits of such an approach. And actually, there are multiple benefits. One is to calibrate financing gaps. We keep talking about we need more money and there are financing gaps. But we often lack a robust understanding of these gaps and quantification of these gaps. Such an effort would also help benchmark countries and situate countries vis-à-vis one another, which can be very helpful to target support. Where is support much needed and what kind of support is needed? Because as we said, it may not need about flooding countries with more money. Support can be multi-dimensional. It's also, such a project would also be a great opportunity to share knowledge among countries. There is a lot to be learned about what works well, what works less well across the region, and such a project would facilitate exchange of knowledge here. And reflecting on what Roberto presented earlier, I think such an effort could pave the way to country-specific work, and it could actually inform the national workshops on financing water with more robust data on the gaps and the specific situation of a particular country. And again, opportunities to learn from other countries. So if there is an interest, the OECD would be very keen to embark in such a project, obviously working in partnership with GWP, but also, of course, with potential supporters like the European Commission, Swedish SIDA, or other organizations active on financing water in the region. Just an offer, food for thought. We'd be happy to get some feedback from you on this.
All offers well accepted and happy to consider practically. Thank you very much, Xavier. Thank you to all the panel members. This was very rich. The pointers were very concrete and the knowledge shared was excellent. Thank you so much. I pass it immediately to Almotas for the facilitated part of the discussion.
Thank you very much, Vangalis. Thank you for the distinguished speakers. We took note from all intervention made by our great financial and international economic institution around the Mediterranean, our main partner. Thank you very much, Safir, for your willingness to cooperate in implementation the UfM financial strategy as usual. Thank you for your role and your hosting also the task force many times in Paris. So I can see that any reaction from the member state, from participant, please raise your hand. Okay. Vangalis,
Yes.
can you please take the moderation for a little bit because I need to go to.
Okay. So, colleagues, let me ask our team: do we have requests for interventions? We have a lot of exchanges on the chat box. We are going to reflect all this in the report, of course. But do we have a request for intervention taking now the floor? Okay, we have Eric Mino from Semide. Eric, are you ready?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, Eric,
Yes,
please go
okay.
ahead.
I've had difficulties in unmuting. So one short comment, and I think it's valid for the national workshops, but also for the financial strategy, which is related to the needs of the rural communities, and how can we reflect their needs in these national workshops and in defining national strategies. And this is also an important question when we consider, how they could access the climate. There's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
How they can access the climate financing, because their needs is really related to water supply and sanitation, to the wash sector. Usually they've got small needs. So if they are project, if we group them, we're looking at communities around between 1,000 and maximum 10,000 inhabitants. So it's needs which are, if we take a full river basin, it's between 3-10 million euros, not more. And these are not really well addressed by the climate funds. It's micro projects, and there's no structure to support such kind of projects. So I think we need to think about how to deal with this and how to also take it into account, specifically if we are going to make projections on the needs for water financing.
Thank you, Eric. A well-taken point, and also reflected in the chat box further. Any other interventions? Any other interventions? If you wish to do that, please go in the participants box and you will find the raise hand function. Please press that. Okay, if not, let me suggest that we go for a very short break of 10 minutes, no more. So we will be back at 11:20 Central European Time, and we start the next session immediately. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I will be very delighted to moderate this session. But before we start the moderation of the session, I would like to highlight one point that it came on my chat room from my colleagues and from the Union for the Mediterranean and JWB, that participant, usually you can go to, if I don't know if I can share the screen. Okay, I'm seeing that. You go to the participant box and there is a place where you can raise your hand. Once you raise your hand, the team will note for us that this person or that participant want to intervene. Then the moderator will know to whom to give the floor directly, as well as our technician will allow him or her to speak. So I would like to just give you like where to go. You go to the participants, and in the participant there are kind of raise hand, and then we will know. Otherwise, you can state it on the chat. On the chat box, you can also state that you want to intervene. Then our team will notify us that you want to intervene. Especially, we have facilitated discussion after the speaker intervention. So with that, I would like to start the session number 3 today, which is looking forward in the post-COVID-19 era for water and environment in the Mediterranean. The objective of this session, as stated in our concept note, is to share ideas and planned activity on water and environment with a special focus on post-COVID-19 outlook and how these institutions working in the UfM region and with a special focus on the neighborhood and Mediterranean region are planning themselves in order to keep the water sector sustainable and contributing to the socio-economic development, as well as how we can bolster regional and international cooperation to achieve SDG 6 in the Mediterranean and globally. With this, I am very pleased to introduce our great friend Stefano Dotto from the neighborhood DG NEO. He's responsible about climate change, energy, environment, transport in the European Commission. So Stefano Dotto, floor is yours, and you have, as stated, almost 7 minutes to give us your intervention. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm not sure I'm unmuted. Let's just.
No, we hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead. We hear you.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to take the floor on this opportunity. I won't repeat what previous colleagues have said, but just I'd like to remind that the Commission has proposed a very ambitious recovery plan that for the moment addresses only EU member states and that still needs to be endorsed. So we don't know how how it will conclude and what the amounts available will be. This said, you may want to know that for the future, the Commission is proposing to step up the international cooperation instrument to an amount of 86 billion euro. And in the shorter run, we are proposing to route the funds available mostly to humanitarian aid to follow up the COVID crisis. And broadly, our objectives remain, in longer term objectives remain to achieving sustainable development goals and helping countries achieving their national determined contributions within the Paris Agreement. Now, to get a bit smaller, in DGNIR, we have regional and we have bilateral projects. The difference between the two is, first of all, the scale of funding. Regional projects have a portfolio which is about 1/10 of bilateral projects. Bilateral projects are based on the needs expressed by the countries, and these projects are negotiated with countries, while with regional projects, we propose the project, and whatever country wants to join can or does not join. It's up to it's their decision. And through regional projects, we have the luxury of being able to test solutions. We have relatively little resources to risk. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. When they do work, they are often scaled up through national um, bilateral projects. And in this framework, we design, and we manage directly here from Brussels an integrated family of projects in the areas of climate action, environment, transport, and we're increasingly connecting them to economic development projects. And in the future, we would like to even more reinforce this aspect of cross-fertilization among projects. Now, I will tell you a bit in detail of the regional project that we manage, not least because Ayman already explained the rationale and the functioning of the bilateral project on water in Egypt, and he did it much better than I could do, even if I first seem to say a few words on this. Now, one thing you may want to know also is that even if the subject of this discussion is the post-COVID, we have not changed a moment anything in our project for the post-COVID. We are continuing to run projects as they were, although we are fully aware that the implementation of projects, the normal day-by-day management of project may have changed something, but we think we're anyway addressing the how can I say, the underlying, the fundamentals of water and climate management and action, so that we're not, for the moment, changing anything because of COVID. Now, among the regional projects that we have, I want first of all to mention the Water and Environment Support Project, which follows the SWIM and Horizon 2020 support mechanism that ended a couple of years ago. Whose purpose, which is managed by Sylvie Fontaine, who is also, I see online there on your left, you see her name on the left pane of your screen, and whose objective is to reduce pollution reaching the Mediterranean Sea and strengthen the efficient use of water in urban and rural areas. To this end, the contractor provides technical assistance and training to develop and enforce national regulatory frameworks and to foster dialogue at national and regional level and to promote the exchange of best practices. Then we have the demo projects. We think that, I think we can all agree that water is scarce and wasting it is a nonsense. So, and there are so many ways to waste water. Waste can be technical, it can be economic, it can take place in households, it can take place in agriculture, in the industrial sector. It's a very vast area, and someone asked in the chat before, please define water efficiency. Well, it's so wide that it's difficult to do. And since examples are better than a lot of theory, in 2019 we launched a call for pilot projects on water efficiency. And we kept on purpose the terms of reference open, so to allow solutions that we could not anticipate. And for the moment, and we're now contracting 7 projects which range from efficient use of water in urban and rural areas, water valorization in urban areas, innovative irrigation system, treated wastewater reused for agricultural purposes, and integrated water resource management in an oasis environment. And when I referred before to integration among projects, you may want to know that the WES project, so the regional project, the first one I mentioned before, has assisted the Commission in preparing this call for tender and will work together with the beneficiaries of the projects and will serve to disseminate the results through the UfM and through its own channels of these pilot projects. Then I'd like to mention SwitchMed, which is implemented by UNIDO with 16 and something million. So it's a big project. It's part of the broader switch family, and it's essentially a project of resource efficiency and aims at supporting sustainable consumption production practices. To this end, it helps countries working on regulatory frameworks. It works directly with businesses, and it contributes to developing circular economy.
Just to note, Stefano, that you are out of your time, but like 30 seconds more, please.
Oh, well, that's going to be difficult. But just one example with SwitchMed, I saw companies which saved 90% of their water through the project. Then I should also mention ClimaMed, which is an integrated project of, in the area of climate, which has a component of climate financing, in particular addressed to local authorities. And okay, I can conclude on this. There's, of course, a lot more to say. And business as usual is, of course, not sustainable. And we want to contribute to change through our projects. So my call to all the participants is to make use of these projects. They have good websites, and you can peruse them. And we in headquarters and in delegation are always ready to provide information and to facilitate connections.
Thank you very much, Stefano, for this briefing. I would like to comment on that, on all programs that really help also the Union for the Mediterranean to achieve our objective in different sector. The ClimaMed is UfM labeled the project. Water environment support mechanism is a project considered to implement the UfM water agenda and environment agenda. And we really we commend the work that you are doing, especially the last 3 years that where even you are consulting with us on the preparation of these terms and condition of these projects. As announced earlier, our objective of this meeting is to seek synergy between the UfM financial strategy and water agenda and the European Green Deal and recovery. To do so, I am delighted to invite our great advisor, Nuria Hernandez Mora, to take the floor in order to discuss how we can achieve this synergy. Nuria, floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Matthias. Let me share my screen. Is it working? Yes.
You have 7 minutes.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, what I wanted, as Matthias mentioned, my goal with this short presentation is to try to give some food for thought on potential synergies between the European Green Deal and the UfM water agenda. Just to recap some of what Andrew Murphy mentioned yesterday and has been said throughout, the EU Green Deal is a growth strategy that was issued to address the challenges of climate change and environmental degradation, and has been incorporated as the roadmap to overcome the economic crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. It has 3 key goals, overarching goals: to make Europe a climate neutral continent by 2050, to decouple economic growth from resource use, and to make sure that the necessary transition is a just transition. The Green Deal realizes that all these challenges are interconnected and it needs to work across all policy areas, including investing in environmentally friendly technology, supporting industry to innovate, reforming the agricultural and food sector system to make it more sustainable, rolling out cleaner transportation technologies, decarbonizing the energy sector, and very importantly for this group, working with international partners to address these challenges that are clearly global and need global efforts and solutions. There are a lot of, not similarities, but there's a lot of similarities between the Green Deal and the water agenda. There's possible synergies. First, they both realize that this nexus integrated approach is necessary, that answering or responding to the challenges require action across different areas, and that action in each of the policy areas will have benefits on the different goals of each of the agendas. What this tries to illustrate. out of all the policy areas that the Green Deal and the different documents and proposals and communications that have been coming out, there are 6 of them that even though water is a transversal issue, obviously, there are 6 that actually mention water specifically, and you can look at them in the background document that was part of the meeting documentation. But I'm going to focus on 3 that I think are of particular interest. First one is the Circular Economy Action Plan, which is part of the industrial strategy that seeks to reduce carbon and material footprint and embed circularity across the economy. It focuses on the most resource and water intensive industrial processes and those that have the fastest growing waste streams. In terms of water specifically, it seeks to facilitate and promote water reuse and efficiency. And recently, on May 16th, the European Union, the Commission approved the water reuse regulation, which I think is also very relevant and for the Mediterranean region. It hopes to contribute to alleviate water scarcity by increasing the uptake of water reuse. And what it does is establish minimum requirements for water quality and monitoring to use reused water for agricultural irrigation. The rationale behind this is that there's increasing water scarcity that runs across the EU, just not only in the southern Mediterranean countries, but throughout. And the idea being that that the water use has lower environmental impacts than other water supply alternatives, even though addressing water scarcity obviously requires a more integrated approach, looking at water demand management, increasing efficiency, etc. Some things to keep in mind in looking at reuse as one of the alternatives to address water scarcity. The fact that any reuse policies need to be integrated in a integrated water resource management strategy to avoid a potential rebound effect and increased pressure on water resources, that there are different scales and sectors for water reuse, and each of them, whether it's within the domestic domain, urban area, or for agriculture, require different responses, have different challenges and different policy proposals. And we need to take into consideration water treatment costs and energy implication, and the fact that water reuse, when the water sources are surface water resources, decreases the availability for other uses or for the environment downstream. So it needs to have a more integrated approach when we're looking at this alternative. The second policy I'd like to briefly mention is the biodiversity strategy that was issued in March also, that looks to protect biodiversity by widening the EU network of protected areas and have an ambitious restoration plan. Biodiversity loss is one of the biggest challenges that has been discovered, and all the actions to enhance the quality and health of our biodiversity and natural ecosystems. A lot of the actions across the Green Deal in terms of reducing pollution, etc., help along these lines and help guarantee access to water, which is within the WASH framework of the UfM water agenda. Some of the water-related actions proposed within the strategies to restore freshwater ecosystems, floodplains and wetlands, and implement ecological flows. There is in each of these policy proposals, there is a realization and there is recognition of the economic implications and the job and growth implications of each of these policies. In terms of biodiversity, there is an estimation of the costs of inaction, the economic dependence on biodiversity protection, and the potential that the strategy has for job creation across different areas. The third one is that I think is relevant for this group is the greening of the agricultural policy and the farm to farm strategy that was approved also in March, that recognizing that food production and the agricultural sector result in air, water, and soil pollution, contribute to loss of biodiversity, and consumes a lot of natural resources, including water. It has some specific goals to reduce chemical use by 50% by 2030, to reduce nutrient losses also by 50% by 2030, reduce fertilizer use, increase the amount of land under organic farming within the EU. These are very ambitious proposals that have significant transformations attached to it, social and land use transformations, but that are seen critical to achieve the other goals of the Green Deal. There are some budget proposals attached, which is that at least 40% of the Common Agricultural Policy budget, which, as you know, is one of the main EU budget components, will be dedicated to climate action, and about 30% of the Maritime Fisheries Fund. And there is also, like in all the other policy areas, a consideration of global actions. In this case, for instance, a possible consideration of a sustainability food labeling framework to facilitate consumer choice. Some questions for consideration. Well, what aspects of the Green Deal can be of more interest to UfM members? Where are potential areas of interest and synergies between Green Deal and water agenda? Is there appetite within the group for future work? Where can collaboration continue in the year to come, the year ahead? And what are priorities to work on, and how can they be integrated within the UfM water agenda thematic areas?
Thank you, Nuria, for this presentation, and I will call upon our participant and member state to keep in mind those three questions in order to address them on the facilitated discussion that will be managed by colleague Bengalis. Now, I will give the floor for 2 minutes for Andy Bruma in order to give us the plan of SDG 6 that we are going to do. Thank you, Andy.
Yes. Thank you very much, Almutaz. Okay, this is working. Yes. Well, actually appreciating that we are running rather late, we have decided as, co-organizers to skip this presentation. This doesn't mean that there is no importance or, focus on the SDGs. On the contrary, the SDGs is a very important topic. All countries are involved in activities to implement and monitor progress, and we all acknowledge that there is an added value also on a regional line of work. Therefore, it would be good to have a more dedicated meeting and spend more time on this issue, with more time and space for reflections on both the current status and the proposed lines of activity. We intend to contact you shortly with information about an SDG 6 dedicated online meeting in which your involvement will be crucial. Just to share that this meeting is going to also capitalize and build on the work under UNEP on monitoring SDG 651, where also the Global Water Partnership has a very concrete role in supporting countries with the reporting. The intention is to be able to discuss not only the progress, but also include within the monitoring and reporting segment reflections, concrete reflections also on what we have been discussing, in this current meeting regarding post-COVID recovery and the responses to that. So ideally, leading also to a type of a regional synthesis of what is the status, what are the next steps, what are the responses at regional level within our region also with regards to COVID. Almutaz, I will leave it here. Let's utilize our time, for more discussion.
Thank you very much, Andy. And as said that we will be sending you concept note about and consult with you on dates for this webinar on SDG 6 synthesis in the Mediterranean. As mentioned by DG NEER, Mr. Stefano Dotto, one of the main projects that going on the Mediterranean to implement the UfM water policy framework of action and environment action is the water environment support. With this, I would like to give Professor Michael Skoulas the floor in order to give us a state of play of this project and how this project can be mobilized to further assist the UfM member state, the 10 of the South Mediterranean, in order to respond to COVID and to keep the water sector sustainable. Professor Michael Skoulas, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Almutaz. Thank you for giving me the floor and for allowing me to inform you more, add to what Stefano Dotto already mentioned about the program, and I'm glad that also Sylvie Fontaine is also with us. The response to the water and environment program of WES to the COVID-19 era is perhaps a misleading title, because the response from the moment we read the concept note of the meeting, we realized that you have included a lot of our agenda into the concept note. So many of the things we are doing are described already. Um, there is something wrong with my presentation. So as it was said already, um, there are restrictions in resources at the moment that more resources are needed. And next, I cannot yes, next one, I cannot see the next slide.
Okay, I think you just say next because
yeah, I said next.
Okay, our company, it seems that they are controlling everything.
Yes, anyhow, um, so the WES is just, as it was said, the continuation of a series of regional projects supported by the EU, particularly DG NEAR in cooperation with DG Environment and in close collaboration with you, with UfM and the Barcelona Convention. And in this phase, it stresses on the capacity building of the countries and technical assistance and enhancement of enabling conditions. All of them are particularly important for dealing with the pandemic and the day after. The project has a budget of approximately 8 million till 2023, plus 6 million that Stefano mentioned for the demo projects that to a certain extent are integrated in the WES program. The emphasis, as it was said already, should be on no regret measures on water and environment management, both dealing with, I'm sorry that there is problem with slides. I have asked for the next, but I don't know what is going on. I cannot control it from here. So the most important thing is that apart of how we have addressed the issues of COVID, apart from trying to have a smooth operation of the program through webinars and these kind of things, I don't take much time of that, but this has worked well. We are approximately following the schedule. An important for us aspect is to use this pandemic as a strong wake-up call for preparedness and reflection on a series of issues. Several of these issues are already targeted, tackled by the WES project. Starting with water, the simple, most basic measure everybody mentioned, from frequent hand washing or whatever. What it was not said is that already in the Mediterranean, we have reports of a 30 to 50% increase, particularly in urban environments, of water consumption, with a very significant shift of resources from agriculture to households. And this in parallel with the very important thing of several millions of Mediterraneans still not having access to safe water and sanitation. The second important thing is that it was said yesterday that although the virus was not found in water bodies, it was found in wastewaters. And still in many countries, we have informal use for irrigation, informal use of raw untreated waters for irrigation. And this is a very important issue. So all the activities that we have directly or indirectly dealing on one hand in reduction of pollution through the component one of pollution prevention, dealing also with different types of recycling and dealing also with changing and sustainable consumption production patterns are absolutely relevant. And in this area, we have West contributing in tangible ways to strengthening institutional frameworks and capacity and ability of partner countries to have more robust institutions in place. At the same time, the second component, the efficient and safe water use with all its topics, 5 topics, with the assessment and estimation of water use, with the water resources valuation, with legal and regulatory aspects of mainstreaming water use and enhancing water efficiency and productivity. All these are directly linked with the absolute necessary reactions and ability of the countries to deal with the coronavirus, and particularly the day after, including with all our colleagues and with Union for the Mediterranean and partners in enhancing also ability of countries to deal with the finances of water, and also very important to keep the water and environment agenda high in their national priorities. And apart from the components, the direct components, there is the vertical, let's say. We have the horizontal components for enhancing and the enabling conditions through formal, non-formal, informal education, through the constructive dialogue with consultations with the civil society, members of parliaments and local authorities, enhancing useful practices, sharing of experiences, and many other things where we have very tangible ways to help with restricted resources, but I think with very concrete results, and always in very close cooperation with the Union for the Mediterranean. So thank you very much.
With this, I thank you very much, Professor Skolas. Absolutely, the concept note was absolutely a joint effort. We always take from your wisdom and from your product, either from water environment support or as a president of GWP Med or MIO. We thank you very much. All the Mediterranean, thank you for your contribution. Now, I will move to the main discussion related to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on drinking water and sanitation. And the day after, the UfM Secretariat teamed up with the Institute du Méditerranée de l'Eau in Marseille, and we had organized 3 different brainstorming sessions with different actors from water utility, member state, as well as experts. With this, I would like to give the floor for Mr. Alain Missionnaire, the president of IME, in order to give us and brief us on the result of this consultation and brainstorming, which absolutely, by the way, these consultations paved the way to this meeting and beyond. Alain, mon cher ami. Voilà. Oh.
Hello, everybody. You listen me?
Yes.
Listen to me? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Vangelis and Almotas, to invite us to participate in these very important events. Dear friends, it's a real pleasure to be with you today and speak on behalf of IME and its members. Faced with an unprecedented crisis by its scale and nature, water and sanitation operators have shown since the beginning of the events a remarkable capacity of resilience. IME was created almost 50 years ago with the aim of being able to benefit from the exchange of experience between operators, contractors, and experts who work every day in the Mediterranean for the well-being of our population by guaranteeing them the better access to water and sanitation. To refocus on the Mediterranean hotspot, if there is any, in terms of water stress, the availability of fresh water could further decrease by 10 to 15% in the next 20 years, while the population continues to grow and the economic development and tourism throughout the region are also knows a prospect of continuing growth outside eventually, obviously, outside the parentheses of COVID-19. This will also impose new constraints on the agriculture, which accounts for 17 to 80% of use in the region. And this year, the Maghreb countries expect their cereal production to drop by around 50%. With more than 250 million inhabitants by 2014, the Mediterranean coast will experience an increase in water stress, and only the use of unconventional water resources and such as many desalination and reuse of wastewater can help us meet ever increased needs. To this must be perfectly associate the fight against waste and other misuse of the resource. The Kingdom of Morocco, which is in a new period of growth, was not mistaken in maintaining, despite the confinement imposed by the COVID-19, leaks detections and repair in drinking water networks, irrigation, and industries. The challenge of reusing wastewater is a major challenge for the country of the south and east of the Mediterranean for two reasons. On the one hand, to face the shortage, particularly in agriculture, with enormous potential, and on the other hand, which says reuse and of wastewater, says complete treatment, and consequently preservation of water resources, the environment, and biodiversity. The World Water Council was right when it asked the Mediterranean Water Institute to launch the project to create a non-conventional world water and energy observatory, starting with the Mediterranean region. All these themes, with others of importance, will be bring on and developed in our fourth Mediterranean Forum, which take place at the end of the year in Malta, and the road of the Dakar World Water Forum. Dear friends, it is certain that any crisis is an opportunity to re-examine our priorities and practices, and to seize opportunities for progress. Many are therefore those who are interested in the next day, projecting on them the expectation of more or less radical development in the economy and society. Keep in mind, however, that the next day, whatever it may be, will be preceded and conditioned by the day with. That is to say, the intermediate period, no doubt long, will extend between the end of deconfinement and the moment when our economy will be returned to its full level before March 2020. A period where we will have to live and work with health risk, its social and economic consequences, and many uncertainties internationally. The horizon that must concern us today is therefore the world with rather than the world after. Because if we are prepared to face the challenges it contains, our further option will be limited. In conclusion, water and COVID-19 have alerted us on the following themes. Water and wastewater infrastructure had been identified as an essential service during this crisis. And this is good for the sector. Wastewater could be used to follow such a crisis, even if it requires scientific-based approach. The third one, the necessity to maintain strong relations with the population during the crisis period to explain what we are doing to maintain a good quality of service. And this is fundamental. Fourth one, the importance of using digital solution to be able to manage installation remotely. And finally, but not least, we need new mechanisms managing non-revenue water in order to improve and maintain the financial balance of operators involved in the management of the crisis. Dear friends, it's important to share good practice between operators and policymakers. Sanitation and health are a very strong pillar, and we should ensure water supply and sanitation, not only for water domestic use, but also for energy production, irrigation, and environmental protection. UfM and IME have to play the role of exchange platform to promote the new dimension of the Five Finger Alliance: water, energy, health, food, and education. Analyze the impact of the COVID-19 in the water agenda and support the implementation of the strategy by providing a platform for policy dialogue and by labeling exemplary projects. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alan, for this really great intervention. We took note about your last remark as well as the previous remarks, but the last one is very interesting for us. The UfM Secretariat ready to take lead on this, and we will be absolutely coordinating among our two institutions. We don't want to be very late for the high-level panel, but it's okay, we are on time. All the presentation will be distributed and will be available at the UfM website later this week. But now I noticed that we have three interventions from different participants. I will give the floor to Vangelis in order to facilitate these three interventions, and then to hand the floor for our Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Isidro, to moderate the high-level session. So Vangelis, please, floor is yours.
Thank you, Almotaz. Actually, we have four. I will name them so they are prepared. We have Michela Mileto from UNESCO WAP, Stefano Dotto from the European Commission, actually responding to a point that was raised by Michela in the chat box, Lesa Windmer from Women for Water, and Enrico Molinaro. So please stay into no more than 2 minutes so we are on time for the high-level panel. Thank you. Michela, please go first.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Vangelis, and thank you very much to Stefano Dotto and to Mr. Nuria Hernandez Mora for this information. I have a question, a comment and a question for you. One is the SDGs and the Green Deal. I can see that there are many overlaps or linkages to these two frameworks, and I would like to know, and I would like to comment on that, in particular, considering that the countries have their commitment for the achievement of the 2030 agenda, and this could be a good option to put together the synergy between the water agenda, the Mad Water Agenda, the Green Deal, and the SDGs and their targets. The second point is mostly a question for both Stefano and or Nuria, and it is again about the how, in particular, to the Green Deal framework, how the social aspect and the human rights-based approach has been included into the Green Deal action, because of course the sustainable development is about the three dimensions: the social, economic, and environmental. And I couldn't see in the presentation any comment on this particular aspect. So thank you very much if you can elaborate on that.
Thank you, Michela. I think for your first question, we will need another webinar just to start thinking about. For the second one, I pass it to Stefano. Stefano? Can we unmute Stefano?
Okay, it's a lot easier like this.
Yes.
I'm not very good at speaking with my hands. No, Michela, thank you very much for the question. You have to understand how we design our projects. Of course, we start from brilliant ideas, from often originated in the UfM framework and in consultation with our stakeholders. But then the moment we design our projects, they are part of a longer term multi-annual programming and commission priorities. And in the design of the project, we have to streamline a number of topics. Gender balance is one of these. Each of our projects needs to have a gender component. Similarly, they have to contain they have to be right-based. The right-based approach has to be explained how we take into account international commitment, EU rules, UN conventions, etc. And then, of course, there's also the process of elaborating the project, which takes into account the comments from all Commission services and of EU member states, well, member states at a bit higher level, and of our stakeholders. So it's, in short, right-based approach is intrinsic to the design of the projects, and this is why we do not specify it for each of the projects. And I hope this answers your question.
Thank you, Stefano. Let me turn to Lesa, and ask my colleagues to unmute Lesa. Lesa, just a moment, you're not on. Maybe you can unmute on your own. I don't. Yes. No, you have just done it. It's fine now. Go ahead.
Is it okay now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It was just flipping itself. Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you, Michela, for your questions, and thank you, Stefano, because I had the same questions, Michela. So I'll skip that one. I had a few things, and I take the advantage of having the floor that I also come back to the financing stuff, because then I tried to speak and the hands didn't work. So first of all, I was a bit surprised about the title of the EU program. It says food to farm. Now, I don't know whether that's a typing error and that you were actually meaning farm to fork. But in any case, what I was missing there is the issue of food loss and food waste, which also means that we're losing an enormous amount of water that has been used to produce the food. So I was wondering whether maybe I was missed or it should be in there. So maybe the speaker can say something about that. Another one to follow up on that is that, and here I am requesting help, is that Women for Water, together with FAO, under the WASEC program, is conducting research and trying to develop a strategy on how to get women's participation and gender issues into water scarcity measures and policies. And we're sort of halfway, but it would be great if there are any thoughts from anybody online now on this issue, and would be really helpful if you can send us your thoughts on this. We're trying to finalize this research by June, so short time, but if there is something that you think that might be helpful there, so water scarcity, the role of women and gender components, please send it to us. Then about finance, I think it's extremely important if you develop the ideas around the financing further, to make sure that we also talk about the methods of allocation of the funds, which Javier mentioned also, I think. So it's not just the amount, but it's also how does it reach the groups that are actually working on the ground to do something about it. Because currently, Javier, from your own statistics, only 0.05, so not even 1% of all ODA is actually reaching youth and women's organizations on the ground. And that makes you sad, right? Because we all say they are doing the work. So I would love to have a debate with OECD, EIB, World Bank, everybody was online today, to see how they can change their procedures and their bureaucracy to make it possible that this money actually reaches local actors. And that's also the smaller utilities. Last but not least, how do you call that? The involvement of women, youth, but also farmer groups, I still think is not enough. So that overall, in all the remarks that were made, it's extremely important to look at strategies, how we can improve the participation, and then not just consultation afterwards, like, hey, do we have a nice plan? But really from the developing stage of the projects. And I noticed that in the West project, there is a reference to it. But if you then look, it looks like consultation and not like participation. So thank you very much, Vangelis.
Thank you very much, Lesa. And I think that you have brought up a very important issue to continue this discussion, especially with the financing partners. We will find a way to do that. Let me turn to Enrico Molinaro. Enrico, please stay in the 2 minutes because the high-level participants are online and waiting for the panel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, I will connect to what I said yesterday regarding the Ponza Prima Med event planned for 11 September in the island of Ponza in preparation of the summit in Barcelona of the for the 25th anniversary. So I will connect also with what Michele, what Mr. Dotto said, and with Michela Miletto, because what we want to do there is something practical. We would like to use the prison, the former prison of Altiero Spinelli, the drafter of the Ventotene Manifesto, because in that island, the Italian government set up a budget to reconstruct and restore the building and to offer it as a possible web lab, including the main issues we discussed today, the minimum common denominator, taking into consideration that the event is sponsored by the Prima Foundation, which gives the name to the event, Ponza Prima Med, and to the UfM. So what we want to do, we want to establish in a very symbolic place the starting point of the modern European Union, a connection with the Mediterranean, to the southern shore. And we decided all together in a long process that I don't have now time to go into details, that we want to deliver this message in a stable building with the active participation with all of you in the innovation and research on the web activity led by the UfM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrico. So let's go immediately to our high-level panel, and let me pass it to the moderator, the UfM Deputy Secretary General, Isidro González Afonso. Isidro, to you.
Thank you, Vangelis. Thank you to all the participants who have been yesterday and today with us. It's been long but very productive sessions. With I think at the end overall not far from 50 speakers between yesterday and today, which is very successful and very dense with a lot of content. So now I'm happy to begin the last closing session. There have been some changes, the last minute changes in the program. So Ali Suba from Jordan will not be able finally to participate, and the same with the head of the Regional Development Cooperation for the Middle East and North Africa of the Embassy of Sweden representing SIDA. They will not join us, but we will have still a very interesting group of high-level participants with the Minister of for Energy and Water Management of Malta, our Secretary General, of course, Ambassador Nasser Kamel, the first Undersecretary of the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation of Egypt, and also, finally, the Director General from the Ministry of Energy and Water of Lebanon and chair of the UNESCO International Hydrological Program, Fadi Komer, who will begin this panel. So I will begin then passing the floor to Mr. Fadi Komer. Welcome. We listen to you now. Thank you.
Yes, good morning,
thank you,
dear colleague. Let me first take this opportunity to express my great happiness to be with you and to know that you are doing fine and in good health. Allow me to wish to all of you prosperity and strength to overcome this worldwide health crisis of COVID-19 pandemic. I would like also to welcome this very important initiative launched by the Union of the Mediterranean under the leadership of His Excellency Secretary General Nasser Kamel to organize this online brainstorming session, which is highly important in these days. This opportunity provides a valuable exchange platform between political leaders, water leaders that are represented here by their excellencies, Mr. Michael Farrugia, Dr. Ragheb, Dr. Abdelazim, and also His Excellency, Mr. Lundberg. I think that Dr. Abdelati is present also from Egypt, the Minister of Water of Egypt in our panel, and our dear colleague Ali Subh also. Dr. Mazen Ghunaim from Palestine will be also present in this panel. I'm very glad to be able to exchange our experiences and opinion about the impact of COVID-19 crisis that affect the nexus of water, energy, and food security on national and transboundary water basin. Dear Excellencies and colleagues, most of our Mediterranean countries, especially in the MENA region, already faces major water security and demand water management challenges. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, that made the situation more critical, especially that social, health, and economical pressure are really very, very present, very strongly present in our countries. Let me first take the opportunity to express my great happiness that I'm with you. And as a chair of IHP program, I would like also to implement with you several steps concerning the nexus security in the MENA region, which is became now a global problem that require collective actions and fostering innovation to be taken and implemented by the water leaders in the Mediterranean and the MENA region especially for the resilience which became very crucial in the absence of strong institutional responses. We all know that our institutions in the MENA region are weak. So uh, the MENA region is in dire of regional cooperation. This is the first point that we need to stress on that we need to enhance more cooperation in order to deal with the cascading effect of COVID-19 affecting the security of water, energy, and food. And we know that two-thirds of the water of the MENA region comes from outside of that region, which will render this problem more and more complicated. Uh, Add to that the water quality problem, which will heavily also will be affected by this general pandemic. And both of these uh, uh, important issues will affect the agreements between nations on transboundary water, especially the Article 7 of the UN Convention, which stipulate the obligation of not to cause harm and significant harm on riparian downstream countries. So this is a major issue that we need to enhance cooperation on that and try to find solution. In order to move forward, as chair of the IHP program, I invite all your excellencies and water leaders and policymakers in the Mediterranean basin to take part on the drafting strategy number 9 of UNESCO, targeting the next decade, 2021 and 2029, and to take part also in the next IHP Intergovernmental Council that was supposed to be held in May 2020, but because of the COVID, it was postponed to October. So I urge you, and I'm really putting on the floor an open invitation to come and discuss those two major issues within the Intergovernmental Council that represents 39 countries of IHP present at UNESCO in order to center our discussion on those two major problems, the transboundary issue and the effect of the COVID on the pollution generating significant harm on the downstreams country, and the second issue, which is the issue of the nexus by limiting the security of water, energy, and food. Number two, we need also, as an initiative, to support the EcoMed project that we have launched at UNESCO in 2015. And this EcoMed observatory project, we are in need of it now so that we have to monitor and to exchange the experience on the pollution of transboundary water and estuaries among our nation and try to create a control platform for those transboundary river by putting early warning system detecting any intentional or accidental pandemic or viruses or crisis creating extra pollution. This project of observatory is now on the agenda of the Intergovernmental IHP Council. And I urge also all the countries of the MENA region, of the Mediterranean region, to come and support this observatory and the creation of the observatory that will be hosted at UNESCO IHP with focal points in all the Mediterranean countries so that we can control this pandemic and other also effect on the water quality of transboundary waters and estuary. Last but not least, we are also organizing a very important event that all the excellencies of the Mediterranean water ministers has been already invited, a conference on digital water within the Speak Conference of UNESCO on digital water in December. And this conference will allow us how we are going to share also our experience on database platform that we need to implement for the quantity and the quality of water, and to exchange all these data among the countries in order to facilitate the cooperation of implementing the concept of equitable sharing and reasonable use, and also the article number 7 of the UN Convention for not endangering harmful action about riparian countries. As a conclusion, we can really say that the COVID-19 was also not only a pessimistic and a negative action, it was also a positive action for us in order to start drawing adaptation plan. And this kind of pandemic will add to the global changes a lot of pressure that we need as water leaders to overcome all together. So the UNESCO platform is here, ready to gather all the efforts that UfM, that the EU, that the major organization of water in the Mediterranean region, in order to find financing for those kind of action as the observatory, to find financing for implementing training program for the water users to face those kind of pandemic problem that will be faced in the future. Thank you so much, Your Excellencies, and I am here to respond and answer any question you'd like to raise. Thank you so much. Mona, comment on...
Thank you so much for your intervention. Thank you also for your kind invitation, very timely, and for your positive point of view that also the pandemic, the COVID-19 is also an opportunity at the end of the day to do things together. The latest event that you mentioned on digital water in December will make of December already a very important month. You know, we are celebrating in Egypt the ministerial meeting of the Union for the Mediterranean on Environment and Climate Change, where water will be in some way also involved. Also, even though we will have further next year or the other year a full-fledged ministerial on water. Very good. So thank you so much. I pass the floor then to Dr. Ragheb Abdelazim, the first Undersecretary of the Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation of Egypt, who will represent the ministry who finally had to excuse himself this very morning. So we welcome you, Dr. Abdelazim. Welcome so much. Listen to you.
Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me first express my sincere thanks to join such important event during the critical time when all nations across the globe are facing such a pandemic. My voice is clear? Okay. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, achieving the sustainable development goals, mainly SDG 6.1 and 6.2, is now more important than ever. The provision of safe water, sanitation, and hygiene is essential to protecting human health during all infectious disease breaks, including the COVID-19. Embracing digital transformation and reducing digital divide is also an important factor in improving water management in such circumstances. Climate resilient water management is also needed, as well as good water governance aiming to ensure adequate water supply and the quality to fight and prevent future pandemics. Knowledge and the capacity building for institutions is now crucial to support good water governance and management. Ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the current global crisis, Egypt has taken proactive steps for dealing with COVID-19 pandemic control. Actions include implementing partial lockdown and curfew, transformation to the approaches of online and digital communication was implemented to manage and operate the complicated water system, as you know, in Egypt. Protection measures in office work and in food work are also implemented. In Egypt, the Ministry of Water Resources took advantage of the current situation to accelerate the implementation of the digital transformation through upgrading the information infrastructure and building the capacity of employees to use digital infrastructure, to use the digital technologies. Online training courses and meetings are now being part of the management process. In Egypt, we strongly believe that information-based water management is as important as physical interventions and constructions. A well-established telemetry network and system is now being used to monitor and operate the canal network overall the country. This system is currently very important to deal with the consequences of the COVID-19. So we can monitor and we can know the situation of water everywhere in the country using such a system with the telemetry system installed in the critical sites and the canal network. As you know, water in Egypt becomes more and more scarce due to limited water resources and annual growing demands. Therefore, two major national programs have recently been launched in Egypt. The first is the transformation to modern irrigation systems, and the second national program is the rehabilitation of canal system and water structures. These two main programs contribute to improvement of water distribution among water users in terms of quantity, quality, and timing of irrigation. Ladies and gentlemen, besides the challenges emerged with the COVID-19, Egypt, as a water scarce country, is threatened by challenges related to its water security also. The gap between water needs and the availability of water is currently fulfilled by drainage water reuse, resulting in achieving an overall efficiency exceeding 80% in the country, but this add burdens on the environment and hygiene. Last year, the government had taken policy decisions in water management, such as reducing and cut down the area of high water consuming crops, such as rice and banana crops. And this was very difficult decree issued by the government. Had farmers weren't happy with, but due to limited water resources, we had to make such decisions. Climate changes is also of concern in Egyptian strategies. The current national program, particularly the Green Climate Fund grant project, are being implemented to safeguard the coastal zone and delta. An integrated coastal zone management study is one of the components that conducted through the GCF from Green Climate Fund, and it will be a strategic goal to combat with such climate changes. Moreover, more challenges are expected considering the impact of the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and this will have its impact, as you know, to the water availability and management in Egypt. The National Water Resource Plan in Egypt has several measures in an attempt to meet the current and the future challenges. Particularly, the government has started to implement desalination of seawater to provide drinking water requirements to the coastal areas, and even such technology. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to talk too much, but let me, at the end of my speech here, to affirm that the COVID-19 crisis can be an opportunity to change to better management and behavior in all life activities. I'd like to affirm that information-based water management that is implemented now in Egypt and the online communication becomes now as important as physical interventions. Let us draw inspiration, motivation from our collective experience. I am confident that with the solidarity, mutual support, and shared efforts, we can unite together and get through these challenges together. Thank you. Hello?
Now, thank you so much for your intervention and for your very important words. I have enlightened us also on this final and closing session of this water expert group that we have been holding yesterday and today. So without further ado, I pass the floor to His Excellency, the Minister for Energy and Water Management of Malta. So please, Minister, you have the floor. Welcome. Please, you have to unmute your microphone. We don't hear you. See, yes, maybe now. Okay, I will mute myself. You unmute yours.
Okay, now is it okay?
Yes, yes.
Very good. Thank you very much for passing the floor. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Union for the Mediterranean for hosting this meeting during this very important period for the Mediterranean water sector, which defines the recovery of the region from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I think I have to thank each and every person working in the water sector in the Mediterranean. Very often we talk about frontliners, health, civil protection, police, armed forces, and we tend to forget people in the energy sector and in the water sector, who, without which we couldn't have the actual frontliners being successful in the fight against COVID-19. I have to thank all the people in the energy and water sectors for their excellent services given during this period. The Union for the Mediterranean's water agenda aims at the development of a regional water policy framework, which can entice a positive impact on the livelihoods of our citizens. As Malta's minister with responsibility for the energy and water sector, I can say that I am proud that this process builds on the ministerial declaration signed in Valletta in April 2017. In this regard, I reiterate the Maltese government support to the Union for the Mediterranean in the continued development of this strategy. The water agenda can be considered as an important inward-looking process, which identifies the strengths of the different Mediterranean countries and seeks to improve the preparedness of each country through an information and knowledge-sharing process. We share common challenges, and our collaboration can only help us develop more effective shared solutions to successfully address these multifaceted challenges of a societal, environmental, and economic nature. This collaboration is also key to ensure that the water sector plays a key part in the development of the Mediterranean's green economy, and hence ensures the sustainable development of the region. Key linkages or nexus, as identified in the water agenda, are important to place the water sector as part of this comprehensive solution, contributing to improving youth employment, reducing the need for migration, addressing the gender divide, contributing to climate change adaptation and mitigation, and improving economic standing. Regional cooperation is key if these solutions are to be effectively achieved. But the water agenda has also an important outward-looking component, providing the opportunity to present the Mediterranean region as a hub of water management solutions, sharing its experience, knowledge, and technologies to support other regions facing similar challenges. Education, I might say that it is also a key aspect to ensure the long-term sustainability of the water agenda, empowering each and every of our citizens with the knowledge required to make the correct decisions in managing water in our everyday lives. Unfortunately, I dare say that very often one opens the tap water, but not having a vision of how that water ultimately reached your household. So the educational part, it is of utmost importance, and may I repeat again that with that educational background, one can manage the water better. Within this context, I have the pleasure to introduce the next Mediterranean Water Forum to be held in Malta, which in alignment with the UfM's water agenda will seek to identify and promote Mediterranean water solutions. I look forward to engage with the Mediterranean water community during this forum, and hopefully the travel channels will be opened. Malta will be opening up its airport to a number of countries as of 1st July, and hopefully we will have all the channels open so that the meeting will be held on our islands in the coming future. So, Ambassador Kamel, I assure you of Malta's continued support to this process, which under the lead of the Union for the Mediterranean will provide an important contribution to the long-term sustainable development of our Mediterranean region. Thank you very much.
you so much, Minister, for your very kind speech. Thank you also for your kind invitation for the participation from all of us in the Mediterranean Water Forum, which will be held in Malta, as you have already said, in November. November, which will be a very important month for the Union for the Mediterranean, because it will be the month when we will celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona Declaration, which was the origin, the far origin of what was later created as a Union for the Mediterranean. So thank you so much for the invitation. We look forward that the situation will be much better. We're sure it will be, and we look forward to being there with you soon in the beautiful country and Isle of Malta. Thank you so much. We pass finally the floor to finish this very rich debate where during 2 days we have listened to over 50 speakers, which is not easy to gather together. We pass the floor to our Secretary General, Ambassador Nasser Kamel, for you to address the closing remarks to this water expert group. Welcome, Ambassador. We listen to you.
Thank you very much, my dear Ambassador Isidro, for sharing this session, and a word of appreciation and thanks and gratitude to all the participants in this 2 days of brainstorming among governments, international organization, regional organization, and all the stakeholders in the water sector. And my deep gratitude to the participant in this high-level segment, my dear friend Fadi Kumer, and sorry for bringing a personal note. I know that you suffered a great loss last month, so our heart goes for you, and we really feel what you've been through. My appreciation also for the participation of the Undersecretary of Egypt. I understand the minister is very busy because he is in the midst of one of the most important negotiation rounds surrounding Egypt water resource. So I fully understand his unavailability to participate in this important session. A word of thanks also to my dear friend and colleague, the Minister of Energy and Water Management in Malta, Michael Farrugia, who has always been a great advocate when it comes to the UfM water agenda. And I hope the November rendezvous will be a renewal of our collective commitment to this agenda, and that we will be able all to physically meet again in your very beautiful country in Malta. These 2 days have been actually extremely rich and inspiring in terms of exchange of knowledge and experience, and also in terms of showcasing our commitment. And by commitment, I don't only mean on the government side, but also on the donor community, the international and regional organization, and all the stakeholders who are working for in the water sector, which is and happens to be one of the most scarce resources in our planet. But when it comes to our region, the problem is actually compounded in terms of our available freshwater resource and the impact, of course, of climate change on this very, very, very important commodity. So these two days were extremely important in terms of discussing what needs to be done, the challenges ahead, and the new variable that we are all facing, which is COVID-19 and its impact on the health, hygiene, and the quality of the water, and the amount of water we need to use to face the consequences and to protect ourselves from this virus. So in that sense, it was extremely enriching. I saw the report prepared by the team, by Mu'taz and everybody else, and the exchanges were rich, enlightening, and extremely useful, and will definitely help in terms of our effort to implement our UfM water policy framework action for 2030. We also discussed the need for a regional approach to that challenge, to those challenges. Beside, of course, the very positive individual country efforts, these 2 days have shown clearly that we need regional coordination, regional response, regional initiative, and also we need the support of our donor and development partner. And I take the opportunity here to thank our colleagues from SIDA who were extremely supportive of what we've been doing, not to forget our strategic partner, GWP Med, who are really our organic and strategic partner in the water agenda for the Mediterranean. I think the crisis we're facing has proved more than ever that we need to work together. We need to make sure that the water governance structure that we have are up to date, are functioning, and are efficient. It has also exposed some of the challenges we've been facing even before the crisis in terms of climate change, water scarcity, and so many other areas. So in that sense, it's been an extremely useful exercise. And I need, beside the very high level participation in this session, I was also impressed by the number of participants throughout the 2 days and their resilience in terms of staying the course during all the discussion. At any given point, we had between 80 to 90 participants, which means that the subject matter was of interest and what has been shared by you, the experts, because I'm no expert in that matter whatsoever. I rely on Isidro and Al-Mu'taz in teaching and coaching me when it comes to this very important subject. I will end my remark by wishing you all good health for you, your loved one, and for all the country around the Mediterranean and beyond, a quick recovery. And as so many have said yesterday, this recovery we need to build better. So the New Deal that we need to implement will have to be a greener deal, a much more sustainable deal, and a much more responsible deal. A recovery that would take us to a much better place than we were before this pandemic. Thank you very much again, and hope to see you all physically or online very soon.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Yes, now finally. So thank you to everybody. Special thanks to Almotaz and Angelis and also Anthi and the rest of the team, Miriam, Elena, etc., for the coordination work. Great work. So now we are now opening, all of us, all the participants, our cameras, because we will take like a family photo. So please open your cameras and we will take the final, the closing picture of all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, all. Thank you.
Thank you. so much. So goodbye. Thank you. Stay safe. Thank you so much.
Vangelis, we don't hear you. Okay.
You don't hear me now.
Vangelis, nobody's hearing you. There is a problem with your voice.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Vangelis.
Okay, thank you. So just a few words, Isidro, please allow me on the next immediate steps. So before the summer break, we're going to have, as it was announced yesterday, a meeting of the task forces, a joint meeting of the task forces of Nexus and Water Employment Migration. Announcement will come to the members of the task force and to the regional organizations. We're going to have a webinar on practical, technical solutions on Nexus, a webinar where we will share experiences and ways forward. And we are going to have to invite you into a consultation about SDGs as Anthi presented before. There is a wealth of meetings that have been announced already by the high-level panel, like the Water Forum in Malta, by Dr. Comer, the UNESCO IHP event, the Cairo Water Week, the next event for the financial strategy of the UfM. We hope that all these will take, and much more will take place under the current circumstances. So on my side, a great thanks for your engagement. His Excellency, the Secretary General, mentioned the figures of participation. They were extremely high for this kind of events, with so many countries and regional stakeholders engaged. I believe that we have done the impossible, having more than 50 speakers over 6 hours, 6 productive hours. So this was thanks to you, and it was with substantial interventions. A very personal say here, I very much miss our interactions over the WEG meetings, the task force meetings, the events of the UfM. I believe that we have created a strong community, not only of practice, but of mutual understanding in the Mediterranean on water, and this is what carries us together ahead. This is so precious. We will continue doing that online until the time we meet again physically. So that is all from me. Almotaz, the final word to you, maybe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vangelis. Thank you very much for all our water community around the Mediterranean for making this successful. It's very important for us to hear from you because you are the owner of the process. Thank you, Dr. Fadi. Thank you, all our participants, His Excellency from Egypt, from Malta, and we are really looking forward to meet you in person. This meeting is an alternative. Nothing can substitute the physical exchange around the round table and the physical exchange with you. And we are committed to continue development of the UfM policy framework of action and implement its biannual work plan. We will see you soon on different occasion. All our work plan will be implemented either online or physically. We're looking forward to meet you, and we are committed for all enhancement of the sustainable development and regional cooperation in the Mediterranean. Thank you for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.